All right, everybody. So now we're going to take a minute and talk about different payment options that we have for our patients. It is really important, regardless of what position you are in the practice, to understand that a big barrier to patients accepting care is, can they afford the care? How can we make the care that they need affordable to fit within their monthly budget or their expenses that they have already planned? And for a lot of people, that means looking into some type of payment option. While we don't do any specific withdrawals on a monthly basis for general care, it's a little different for ortho. We can talk about that later. But while we don't typically do any type of in-office financing, we do offer financing through third-party payment options. This allows the patient to essentially pay us in full, and then they would make monthly payments directly to whichever party that they utilize their third-party option for. So our main provider is Military Star Card. If you are at all familiar with military or being on base or even just walking from your car into the office today, you should have probably seen a couple different ads or flyers for Military Star Card. It's a wonderful opportunity for anybody military to be able to get a credit card that allows them to make purchases not specific to medical, so they can use it in the exchange. They might want to purchase new furniture, or they might be buying a new TV, but they can also use it in our office. What's really cool about Military Star Card is there's different promotional periods. So there's a general APR, different time frame depending on what you purchase and for how much. But every once in a while, there's separate plans that they have for different promotional periods. Talk to your SBM, see if there's an opportunity if you're running a special like October's Ortho Month, or if you are a brand new office and you want to have some type of additional incentive for patients, they might be willing to have a certain period of 0% interest for patients or deferred interest. So Military Star Card is our primary lender. You have a separate terminal for it. I believe you can also process on the computer. Check with your team to see exactly how you would run these cards, but your SBM helps support you with this. And then our secondary option that we talk about if Military Star Card is not an option, or if a patient doesn't have enough available credit on Military Star Card or not eligible for Military Star Card, Care Credit is another wonderful opportunity that's for medical purposes only. Now you can use it at a veterinarian office, you can use it at optometry offices, sometimes cosmetic related, just depends if the different provider accepts Care Credit, but same concept. It allows the patient to pay in full for their treatment and then make monthly payments to the party, so Care Credit or Military Star Card. So in order to really understand why this is a significant option for patients and why this makes a big difference in overall care accepted, is we need to really think about what is third-party financing and why should we talk to our patients about it. So we've got two little videos. These are going to be attached for you guys. I'm going to have you guys watch these. So we'll pause in just a moment and you can watch the first one about Military Star Card and then the second one about Care Credit, and it'll give you some more insights. But it is really important that we figure, now each practice is different, each base is different, but typically patients need to get work done. If you need a crown, that could be $1,500 right there. So if you figure patients, depending on what their specific needs are, but on average need about $1,500 of work to get completely healthy, that is a decent amount of money that's very difficult for some patients to be able to afford. If you think just in the US alone, over half of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, meaning they don't have a ton of extra disposable income. Unfortunately, it doesn't change the fact that they need this care, and that, like with anything medical, we know the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets to fix. And hopefully we're not getting into the pain realm, but the longer you wait, the more likely it is that you could develop sensitivity. It is important that we think about how can we make getting this care easy and affordable for patients. So pause for a moment, watch these two videos, take some notes on your note sheet, and then we will loop back. So here are some of the takeaways that we were hoping that you got from watching those videos and thinking about this. Why do we use third party? We call it's financing, that's what it is, but we refer to it more as a payment option for patients. It's because it allows patients to pay in full for services that are needed but make smaller monthly payments on them, so you can get completely healthy. In some cases, depending on your doctor's and patient's availability, the patient could be completely healthy by the time their first payments even due. So this lifts a huge barrier, and a weight is lifted because patients are now able to get the care that they need to without putting their household finances in jeopardy. It doesn't delay or break apart treatment. Now, if the patient is not willing to utilize third-party financing, if they don't have the means to pay by, personal cash, check, or credit card, um, this will allow them to not have to break up their treatment. However, if they do have to break up treatment for financial purposes that's best for them and their family, that is okay. We can partner with them, and that's what we're here to do. But when you do that, you run the risk of putting off treatment, and this is where the clinicians have to be upfront and honest with the patient, and it's hard to tell. Sometimes you don't know. That tooth that needs a filling or has decay and will need a filling to be able to be treated, who knows? If you let that go for a few months, it might turn into something worse. You can't really predict the rate in which that the severity could continue to cause treatment to change down the road. So if we have to break apart treatment and prioritize, we can do it in a strategic way that makes sense for the patient's finances, but clinically makes sense. So that's where we need to really partner with our doctors and our hygienists, because they're the ones that can tell us the order of treatment that we need to do based off of what we're working with. But this does push out treatment potentially. So in a lot of these cases too, there is lower interest options or deferred interest depending on how much you're taking out and for what terms. So it allows patients who are interested in focusing on best options to utilize their cash to go further, even if they don't need a third-party payment option. If there is the option for deferred interest or a low interest rate, they can invest their money in other options and be able to utilize these payment options so they have more spending capital elsewhere. Now, we are not financial advisors. We don't expect you to give any financial advice to anybody. It is just important that you guys understand that this is a good option for a lot of patients, and a lot of patients wouldn't be able to get the care that they need if we didn't offer these options. A side note that's not listed on here, and I learned this pretty early. Luckily, both my parents work in banking, so I feel like I've had a little bit more experience than most. But it does help you establish credit. So if you have a young adult child who very well still lives with mom and dad, or mom and dad help support, and they're trying to build their credit, these are not bad options to be able to start doing so. But once again, we are not financial advisors, just something to think about. What's great from a business standpoint, by utilizing these third-party payment options, it allows our office to be paid in full, which means that you don't have to worry about collecting from the patient each time they come in. You don't have to worry about if the patient has a question and in regards to what they owe specifically for this visit, or if the doctor said, hey, I could do an extra filling today, you're doing really well. You don't have to worry about collecting that on the way out. Everything is just smoother. We know what's truly accepted, get the patient scheduled, and get them taken care of. We're not following up on collecting old debts. If we miss collecting something for the patient, everything is just taken care of in full. It is best practice. We also know from a cancellation standpoint, if patients have some skin in the game, they've prepaid for treatment, they're more likely to hold those appointments, and then your schedule doesn't tend to fall apart as easy as it would had the patient not be financially invested in the appointment. Sometimes patients might say, oh, I'll just pay that full $350 when I come in next Thursday, but maybe next Wednesday hit and they had to make an unexpected payment or purchase something. They might then not let us know they're not coming in, but they missed their appointment because they don't have the funds. Or they come in and they still want to get the work done and are hoping to be able to make payments on that later, which is not something that we typically do in our practice. Now, obviously partner with your regional if it's a one-off situation and see what we can work with, but we don't want to be chasing old debts, and we need to make sure we have to be smart about our financial situation in the practice. I can tell you from my experience working in consulting for private practices and working in large DSOs, this is extremely common. It is not unheard of for patients to have to prepay for treatment, that all that they invest and they pay for goes towards their treatment. Should they move, should treatment change, they would get refunded that difference, but it is not uncommon to have to prepay or put a down payment towards treatment, so that way the schedule can stay put together and we're really aware of what true treatment the patient is accepting. We also hit on this the earlier slide, but we know with dental, like anything medical, the longer you wait, the more expensive it is to be able to fix that and take care of the patient. So when you think about it, if a tooth needs a 1 to 2 surface filling, that might be $100, $150 depending on the patient or their insurance, what their out-of-pocket costs are, and that's typically a pretty easy fix. Now, for some patients, that might be a big deal, that $100 to $200. That might be the difference between being able to buy groceries that week or not. So you just have to be very cautious when you're talking about finances and money with patients because you don't know their circumstances. And the last thing that we want is to assume, be judgmental, or make the patient feel lesser than by having to disclose that really finances are really tight right now. We also need to make sure that we are in a position where it's an appropriate place to have those conversations. But unfortunately, if finances are what's preventing the patient from getting treatment, the longer you wait, the more expensive those fixes get. Now, we don't want to be pressure or salesy, but we just want to make sure that we educate them on the truth that as things progress, they do get more expensive to take care of. So if one of these payment options work for them, that allows them to get the least amount of work done with the lowest cost and be completely healthy so things don't progress. So if that filling turns into three or more surface filling, that gets more expensive. That's why you'll see as the number that's associated with the code for the number of surfaces on the fillings, that changes the price of the filling. The more spots, the more places the doctor is working to remove decay and add the filling, the more expensive it's going to be. Now, what if things progress and the patient needs a crown? That jumps substantially. Crown fees, depending on what type of materials your doctor uses, depending on insurance coverage, a crown can be anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, just depending. And that is pretty expensive. It's a good long-term fix. We have a wonderful lab that you guys are going to learn about that we work with, but it is more expensive than had they just gotten that filling done maybe 2 years ago, but they put it off due to cost. And it's more extensive work. There's more of the tooth that's getting removed. There's a whole crown or a cap that is going on that tooth. What if the decay goes down to the nerve and the patient needs a root canal and crown? Now, all of these things are doctor diagnosed. So we as administrative team members or as dental assistants and hygienists, we're not telling the patient what they need. That comes from the doctor when they discuss treatment with the patient. But we are just educating them on the impacts of the out-of-pocket cost depending on the treatment as it progresses. So then the next thing, what if we actually have to remove that tooth? What if we can't save that tooth or the doctor's not optimistic about the root canal? Plus, keep in mind, depending on what tooth it is and your doctor, that root canal might be referred to a specialist, and specialists do charge more money. They're specialists for a reason. They did additional schooling. If you're paying for work done and not in a doc's location, so a specialist off base, you don't know their fees. You don't know what they're going to accept from insurance standpoints. Actually, a lot of specialists have gotten away from accepting insurance. So these are just little tidbits to keep in mind because you can't predict or give the patient a cost. And if you are and they're going somewhere else that is working with their insurance and billing their insurance, then that maximum that they get per year is ate away. So there's going to be a higher out-of-pocket cost in your practice. So be very mindful of that when you refer patients out. But what if we need to remove that tooth? Not only are we talking about removing a tooth, healing, placing an implant, and then having an implant crown. It's timely, but it is very costly in order to replace a natural tooth in the best possible way. Now, there are other options like bridges, and your doctor can talk with the patient about the best option for them. It's up to you as the treatment coordinator, which we all are treatment coordinators in a sense in the practice, to get an idea what the patient is feeling and then be able to partner and convey with the doctor any barriers so that way we can find the best fitted treatment based off of what the doctor diagnoses for that patient. So we're talking a lot about money. It doesn't need to be about money. It's not about how much money can we get from the patients. It's about getting them healthy, but educating them on the fact that as you delay treatment, it could and more than likely will get more expensive. So forget the costs. Let's put money on the back burner for now. Let's just think about the time and the pain and what that's doing for the patient. Leaving unhealthy or, issues in the mouth that need to be fixed and resolved and cared for is not good for anybody's overall health as well. Or mental health. Imagine if you know you have a tooth that needs to get some work done and you're constantly nervous. You don't want to chew on that side. You're now not eating anything crunchy like healthy fruits and vegetables, and you're trying to eat soft, unhealthy foods. There's so many things that tie into it. And just remember your patients and read their body language. Present them with the options. Most people would want to know what different financial options they have available so they can pick the best one that fits for them and their families. So now that we know a little bit about our overall third-party financing and how it ties into our acceptance, what it is, how we can partner with patients, Let's talk for just a minute. Our goal is for comprehensive care acceptance. We want our patients to get completely healthy. It is not always as simple as the patient saying, yep, I agree, Dr. Smith. I do want to take care of all of these concerns that you brought up in this treatment plan that you diagnosed me needing. Here's my credit card. Let's get going. Can we do it all in one day? Or can I come back every Monday until it's completed because I'm off Mondays, and then I'll be totally healthy and I'll see you in 6 months for my routine hygiene care and then yearly for my exams moving forward. We wish it was that easy. It's not that easy. It takes some working with patients, connecting with patients, coming up with a specific plan depending for each patient. From a business standpoint, let's talk about the best option in terms of getting comprehensive care down to the how can we make it work, chip away at the care that the patient needs, but still be moving in the right direction to do all we can to get that patient completely healthy. So in a perfect world, the patient pays with either cash, check, their personal credit cards in full. This makes it easy for us. We know exactly what treatment is being accepted. If there's any treatment that is not being accepted, we can revisit that after the treatment that has been agreed upon is completed. But we know that the patient is aware, they sign their treatment plan and they pay in full. So as they come in, they don't have to worry about stopping up front and having financial discussions. Another option is the patient pays in cash, check, credit card, half at the time to schedule and half at the time of service. This allows patients to work with their funds a little bit. It breaks it down. It makes it a little harder for us because we have to remember to collect that, and we have to make sure that the patient is aware that they owe that. If something comes up where they're now not able to pay that, that puts them in a tough position because they have an appointment scheduled. What do? We typically do not allow patients to owe money on services it's a patient-specific portion or patient obligation. So this could pose a problem down the road, but still overall this works pretty well as long as we are very clear about what the patient owes when. We want to write it down for them. I don't know about you guys, but how often do you go to a doctor's appointment and everything makes sense? You're sitting in the chair, you're recapping, you're like, this is wonderful, I get it, I'm totally on board. Then you get home, you make dinner, you pick up your kids, you're watching a show, and then you're like, oh my goodness, what was I supposed to do? The doctor told me something. How much money did I need to bring? What do I need to make sure I have on my HSA card? Did I already pay in full? It makes it where it's difficult. So think of it from a patient standpoint. How can we make this as put together, as streamlined as possible? We want to print out that walkout statement. We want to show the patient exactly what is scheduled for them, what date, what time, highlight it, what they will owe at that appointment, any remaining work they still need. And we always want to plant that seed for work that they didn't accept. Now, if the patient is adamant, I know I could benefit from Invisalign, I'm not interested right now, I'm adamantly not doing it. You don't want to bring it up every six months when they come in. You can hint at it, how are you doing? But we don't want to make it feel like we are ignoring the patient's wishes and we're trying to push care. If it's something that they absolutely need, if a tooth is extremely decayed and causing issues in the mouth, that's something that, depending on the doctor, you could say, how would you like me to follow up with Miss Susan about this, and come up with a specific game plan. So another good option, this is wonderful. Patients pay using StarCard, which is that primary lending source that we talked about earlier, or Care Credit if StarCard's not an option for them. And when they use these services, they pay in full for all of the treatment that they are accepting. It doesn't make sense to be charging, $50 here, $190 here, $2,500 here. Charge for all the treatment that they are accepting, so that way they have one payment that they make per month, and then they know exactly how to go about making those payments. They don't come in and pay your office. They've already paid you in full. They're going to get a statement from Care Credit or a statement from StarCard, and they can arrange either auto payments, they can pay via an app, they can write a check. It's up to them. We don't educate them on that because we are not their representatives for StarCard or for Care Credit, but we can help facilitate. But make sure that they are aware that they're not paying you guys directly. This has happened in my previous worlds, both private practice and for large DSOs, and as I visited other practices for docs where patients have come in and say, I need to make a payment on my account. Their account is completely up to date, and if we don't take the time to look at it, the person who's working the front might say, oh, well, you can prepay, you do have another filling you need to get done, and the patient's intent was maybe to make that monthly payment for for their, care credit or their star card. And then the patient thinks they make that payment and then they're behind on that account. So we need to make sure that they understand that they are paying us in full and that they will resume their monthly payments directly with care credit or star card, and we can provide them with the direct number for the client services for them. Now, another option, and this, it all depends on the patient's need, the severity of their treatment. This is where you really partner and observe that relationship with the doctor and the patient as they're going through and getting that buy-in on their acceptance. But if we do need to break apart treatment step by step for financial purposes, or in some cases, let's be honest, patients are feeling out the office. Do they trust us to resume and do all of their care? They might start with one little thing. If that is what they're doing, we want to try to make the biggest stretch or biggest bang for their buck with what they're able to afford if cost is a concern. And you want to really partner with them on what are we working with? What type of payment are you able to afford? And then figure out, okay, she can do, $250 a month. Let me get with the doctor and determine what is most urgent. Now, keep in mind, sometimes from an aesthetic standpoint, maybe if the patient chipped a front tooth, that is not as urgent treatment-wise as the tooth in the back that needs the root canal, but to the patient, that might be most urgent. So always make sure you're relaying that information to the doctor, and then the doctor can talk with you about exactly what order we're breaking down treatment and what makes the most sense. Patients can also put some on their account towards treatment. So let's say we know that they need this crown done, and the goal is to get this crown done in 6 weeks, and the patient wanted to put, a quarter down now. They're going to come in 2 weeks, put another quarter, and then they're going to put the difference on the day of the service. Just put very clear notes in there so that way we don't have to keep asking the patient what their intent is and what they're doing. And then that way it seems like everybody's on the same page, because we know that there are multiple team members in the practice that might assist when the patients come in. So now what happens if a patient doesn't accept any treatment? That is not what we want at all. Patients come in for a reason. They want to get their work done, or they want to figure out what they need. If a patient leaves without accepting any treatment and giving some valid follow-up, plans, in some cases a patient might say, I really do need to talk to my husband about this. I know we do have Star Card, and that's a wonderful option. I see that my payments would be about $145 per month, which seems doable, but before I move forward, I do need to speak with my husband. That would be more of okay, we understand where the patient's coming from and we respect that. Now, how can we follow up with that patient to make sure that they have all of the tools they need to be able to follow up with their husband and get them scheduled? It might be as simple as just, and you'll learn this more when we go through our consulting module, but it might be as simple as just saying, when is a good time for me to follow up? Or if you'd like, I could step out of the room if you want to make a phone call, or I'm available if you guys want to stop in tomorrow. It's up to you guys, or next week. What's your schedule look like? I want to make sure that if your husband has any questions that we can address these. If the patient does tell you that they're working with another family member to determine care, make sure that they indicated that we're able to talk to that family member, because if the husband were to call and say, hey, I had a question, my wife's mentioned she needs 2 crowns and a filling, I just wanted to, sort of get some insights as to what is a filling or what is a crown. In order to be able to look at that patient's chart and confirm anything specific to that patient, we would need to make sure that they indicate that we can talk to that patient and they filled that out on their forms. So as a consulter, your ears should perk up and just say, let me make sure. Are you comfortable if your husband calls with a question that I let him know? Or if your wife calls with a question, I let her know specifics about you and your care. Most of the time they'll say, yes, that's totally fine, and then just have them sign appropriately and put down that person's name and information, or anybody that might be calling or asking about treatment. There are cases where I've had couples come in and the wife was in a denture and didn't want her husband to know. So you never know. You can't assume. So you always want to err on the side of caution and check with the patient. But if the patient is leaving without scheduling anything, to me, what that typically says is they weren't bought in the chair, and maybe their experience wasn't what they had expected, and we didn't exceed their expectations or provide the type of experience that we would hope for our patients. So ask some questions. Find what works for you. It is completely acceptable to say, hey, was there anything we could have done to make this visit more enjoyable for you? Or we would love some feedback. Are you willing to let us know how we're doing and how we could be better or continue to improve for patients just like you? One of the things that, and you got to find your verbiage, find your lingo, what works with you, because you want it to feel natural, but we want to be able to make sure patients know that we care and we're listening. We want to grow. We're human. We want to do better. And then also we want to be able to coach and support our teams, because our ultimate goal is to get patients healthy and be able to provide exceptional care within the community. So sometimes it's as simple as, hey, if you don't mind me asking, Miss Smith, if cost weren't a concern, is there anything that would prevent you from doing treatment? This gives you some really, really important information. Is the barrier truly the financial aspect of it? Is it something like fear? Or is it that they're just not sure they necessarily need that treatment? For some patients, if it's the first time that they're being told they have periodontal disease and they need to have scaling and root planing done, and then they see the price tag on it and they're used to just going to their normal, 6-month doctor and getting a preventative prophylaxis cleaning that's covered by their insurance, it's shocking. They might want to do some of their own research, and that is okay. Can we provide them with whatever tools we have? Are we able to give them a printout of their perio chart or show them where some of those pocket depths are deeper, so that way they have an idea and they can do their research? We don't want patients committing to any treatment that they're not necessarily sold on or feeling confident in, so it's up to us to educate. So you can find very important information with that very simple question. If cost wasn't a concern, was there anything that would prevent you from doing this treatment? Because it gives us an idea of where maybe there was some disconnect or how we could better support our patients. There might be cases where the patient has extreme dental anxiety and we go above and beyond and we do everything we can and they just need some time to process, and that is okay. You can say something along the lines of, put it on the doctor, put it on the hygienist. I know Dr. Smith is going to want me to follow up with you and make sure that we can support you and get you the care that you need. Is there a day of the week next week that works best for you that I could reach out to you, or maybe you could come in and we could sit down and talk about any questions that have since come up? My name is Allie. I'm going to give you my email address and our direct phone number here. Please save this in your phone, so if you need us, you get us. It rings every phone. You can ask for me. I'm typically here 5 days a week. Sometimes when I work a Saturday, I'm not here on a Monday through Friday. But if I'm not here, I'll make sure there's plenty of good notes in your chart. Anybody can help you. Susie is my go-to gal who's up front as well. But I promise I'll give you a call back as soon as I get back in if you do call for me and I'm not here. That type of support and connection is what's going to make our patients feel valued. And let's be real, I think some of you guys who've worked in practices are probably thinking that all sounds fine and dandy, but how am I going to do that when there's a million patients coming and going and we're, behind schedule or we're short-staffed? It is all about proper schedule management, which cues us up for one of our next modules we're going to talk about. But it is really important that we are providing strong care for patients. We are following up. We are getting them to get the work they need done. Sometimes patients get this feeling that I came into the doctor's or the dentist, and even though I just did an exam and x-rays, I'm checking a box, I don't need to come back for 5 years, I did it, I'm healthy. I think that is a coping mechanism because they are nervous, and that's something that inside they might be processing that is not accurate. But we want to make sure that we celebrate the steps of, we're so glad that you came in. We want to support you in this journey. In order to get fully healthy, these are the things that you are going to need to get done based off of our doctor's diagnosis. Do you have any questions? If cost wasn't a concern, is there anything that would prevent you from doing this work? What can we do to make it easier for you to be able to get this work done? Or how can I best support you? Let the patients tell you what they need and document it. Nothing is worse than having to repeat yourself over and over again. So think of it from a patient perspective. We need to document so that way when we follow up, we know what approach to take and we're not having to put the patient in a position where they have to repeat themselves. I know we already hit on this, but it is so important that we just talk about this for one more second. If one little thing goes wrong in the patient experience, regardless of if it was necessarily something we could have done different in our practice, or if it was just the way that the patient is processing from prior dental trauma or fear, if one little thing goes wrong, those patients tend to be looking for an out to not move forward with their treatment, and finances are the easiest excuse to avoid necessary treatment. So if it's treatment that is needed, that we know the patient needs, that our doctor diagnoses, that it's really important that we follow up with the patients on. Finances can be one of the main reasons why patients will say, I got to check my finances, or I don't get paid till next Thursday. Try to gather as much information as possible without being pushed or salesy, so we can better follow up and customize our approach to support the patient, because the whole end goal is to get them healthy and get the care that we know that they need. So lastly, what are some best practices? Action through accountability is huge. It is all about setting yourself up for success. Regardless of what role you are in the practice, it is important that you continue to grow and develop in your role so you can better support your patients, better support your team, and overall the days just get a little bit easier and more enjoyable. So let's break it down to three important things that we focus on. It is so important, regardless if you're the manager, if you're a dental assistant, if you're the doctor, if you're a member coordinator, a hygienist, no matter who you are in the practice, always inspect what you expect in terms of the patient experience. We see it through different lenses. We are part of it during different parts of the process for the patient. So it is important that we are talking about what is the overall feeling and the vibe that the patients seem to be getting during this visit. We can grow together. It is normal to have opportunities. You want to always make sure that you praise your peers for jobs well done, talk about the good. But if there is an opportunity, don't say we've got an issue. We've got an opportunity. Let's talk about it. Partner with your manager so that way he or she can provide proper coaching and support. But we want to make sure that we are actively spending time talking about it and role playing. If we have a cancellation or if we're planning a monthly meeting for our team, it is important that we role play and practice. We should be talking to our teams on a daily basis about what are some of the barriers or reasons why patients didn't accept care. We've got to learn from the good and the bad. Discuss all your reviews as a team. What are patients putting on Google, on Facebook? What are they calling and telling us? Are we getting angry patients? And if so, why? What can we do better? Lean on your regional managers or your operational support. Lean on training. Let us know what we can do to be able to support you guys. But we also need to inspect, are we actively talking about third-party financing to patients? Are we giving them all the financial options so they can make the right decision for their family? If we're not talking about it, then no wonder we're not utilizing these options and getting patients to accept more comprehensive care. It has to be something that we bring up to all patients. We need to measure the data and accept the results. It's just like, I don't know about you guys, but when you go to the doctors, if you got to step on the scale, it is not pleasant sometimes. If you've been eating junk food and wearing stretchy pants for a whole year and you haven't held yourself accountable, odds are the number that you're going to see is not going to be what you really want to know, but you got to know where you're at in order to continue to grow and do better. We can all justify. We can say, well, hey, we didn't have a full staff that day, or we can give excuses. At the end of the day, it's not the patient's fault if we were, team members were out sick, or if we didn't have something we needed to make their experience ideal. So at the end of the day, no matter what the circumstances, we are responsible for the overall patient experience. And it does no good to dwell on the things that are out of our control or the things that happen that make it more difficult. Instead, let's celebrate the wins and let's get a plan in place to hopefully prevent some of those issues or those reasonings as to why things maybe weren't as smooth as we had hoped. So are we actually talking to our team about the patients and what they're accepting, and did we utilize payment options in order to get more care accepted? Nothing is more rewarding than a patient saying, "Oh wow, I didn't know that you guys accepted StarCard. I have StarCard. I just paid it off. Let's move forward. I do want to get healthy. I really enjoyed my visit with you guys. I'm going to pay in full for this and get everything scheduled. I'd love to get back sometime next week." That shows that we did a wonderful job. That patient is invested. This is a patient that we want to make sure that we're asking for reviews, we're asking for referrals, and the patient is being able to share that they didn't know that we accepted it. We don't have a ton of marketing that's all over the place highlighting this, so it's up to us to talk about it. Talk to your team about it. Hey guys, remember Miss Smith that came in yesterday afternoon as a new patient? She's moving forward. She's doing all of her treatment, and she actually had just paid off her StarCard, so she is going to be using that so that way we don't have to worry about figuring out financial plans that work for her and she can get completely healthy. Side note, her grandson is getting married next May, so she wants her smile to be on point. I put that in the notes. Make sure when she comes back in, we talk to her about the wedding and where it's going to be, what she's going to wear. Keep it fun. Remember, these are people. We're in the business of people. It is so important that we own the confirmation, or what I like to call courtesy calls. There'll be a separate training on this, but it is so important that we are directly talking to our patients, especially our new patients and our big, what we consider rock appointments when we talk about the schedule, those big time commitment appointments in the doctor and the hygienist chair, those high dollar value urgency appointments. We need to physically talk to them. They're going to get automated messages that go through Denticon, and that's great. It provides a safety net, and it notifies the patient, so if that doesn't work, they can let us know sooner than we would call them, though that is not enough to confirm the patient. If at the end of the day, it has been one of those days where you don't remember what happened this morning, you've been running around, we've all had them. At the end of the day, when those last patients are checked in, it is so important that somebody, if the front is short-staffed, potentially an assistant can jump up and help, but we have to do courtesy calls to confirm the patients for the next day and then the day after. If nothing else, the morning of the next day, and we can call the afternoon patients as soon as we get in the next morning. But are we giving them the information that we are happy to see them, plan on being here for X amount? If they're interested in moving forward with treatment, we have a financial coordinator that's going to talk with them. Are there any concerns that they have coming in? And if nothing else, and you're doing it as a courtesy because you see that they already confirmed online, put it on the doctor, the hygienist. Dr. Jones is so excited to see you. We've been getting your chart ready and having everything prepared for your appointment tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. If you could please fill these forms out online that I'm sending to you. Otherwise, come in at least 15 minutes early so you have plenty of time to do that. But we really look forward to meeting you. Anytime you can, if a patient brings up anything financial, which if patients are concerned about that, they tend to bring that up to you, make sure you reassure them that we do have different financial options and we work with patients with all different budgets, and then notate that so that way whoever's talking to the patient can say, I know that you mentioned on the call yesterday that you were concerned about finances and you wanted to discuss different options. Once the doctor goes through and diagnoses the treatment that you need that's best for you, what we'll do then is we'll figure out what those look like and how we can go about making it work for you. After the patient's been diagnosed, sometimes the easiest way is to say, well, what type of payments work for you per month, and work backwards. Patient might tell you that they can afford $300 a month, which that might not be the whole crown that they need right away, but that might get them 3 crowns on Star Card. Depending on what they need, they might be able to get their full comprehensive care within those payment amounts that they're comfortable with per month. Now, the kicker is they do have to get approved and they have to be able to open up the Star Card or the Care Credit Card. But if that doesn't work and we run into patients that don't have that extra means and breaking it apart just doesn't work depending on the severity of the treatment, there are all sorts of other options. Like with Care Credit, you can be an authorized user. Now, this is hard because you've got to have a family member or friend who is willing to either come in and pay with their Care Credit to allow you to make payments to them. Now, they would have to be on the chart saying that we're allowed to let them know what you owe and make the payment, or you can come in with them. But they have to be the one signing for it, whoever's name is on the card. Or you can be made an authorized user, which means that somebody who has an account gets an authorized card in your name where it's tied to their credit and their available credit, and then you can utilize it that way. It's a little risky. Not everybody has somebody who will allow them to do that. It's not up to us to give them insights, but just provide a possible solution. But I do know that there have been patients we've worked with in the past that have family members that have been willing to do that to allow the patient to get the care that they need. It is all about partnership, making sure they understand the treatment that the doctor diagnoses, the urgency behind it, and then there's different options that fit every budget. We can figure out what works for you, but our goal is to get you as healthy as possible in a way that is comfortable for your family financially.